Hey everyone, Bill Huizenga. It's quite a day here in Washington. After a very productive, challenging, robust family internal meeting of the Republican caucus yesterday, we thought we had a path forward that was going to include keeping the government open while we were working on appropriations bills and passing the Department of Defense authorization to get that underway, to get over to the Senate. Unfortunately, that unraveled today on the House floor. So we did not end up having that vote. Here's the state of play is at the end of September, government funding runs out. There is an internal agreement that we are not going to fund the government at the same level as it was last year, which is frankly bloated. Additional dollars that had still been remaining from COVID funding. It's really, frankly, Nancy Pelosi priorities in a lot of this. We are needing to get back on track with proper appropriations process, and just as important, to make sure that we are actually tackling our long-term debt. We've crossed the threshold of $33 trillion. If you don't follow me on Twitter or X, I encourage you to do so. I had a tweet today commenting on some of the additional debt that had been racked up just in the last month. And it's pretty stunning. So here's the state of play. We were not able to get that appropriation bill passed. I have been advocating for a long time. When I first got here, I actually was one of the founding members of something called the Balanced Budget Amendment Caucus. I wanted to put and still would like to put a balanced budget amendment requirement to the U.S. Constitution, exactly like what I had to live with as a state legislator in Michigan, and what every state legislature has to deal with in Michigan today, which is making sure you're not spending more than what is taking in, and you can build in the appropriate safety valves if there's a 9/11 type situation or something else were to happen. So anyway, this latest effort is a group of us. It's called the Bipartisan Fiscal Forum. I have a Democrat co-chair, a guy named Scott Peters, who's doing great work as well. And we are having some honest, blunt conversations about where we are on spending and our long-term obligations. Those are two different things. We have sort of a short-term, medium-term, and long-term situation with our spending and our debt. And so I've been asking, requesting, demanding leadership get some sort of commission type structure put into these deals. That was agreed upon. There's a few others, Victoria Spartz and William Timmons, Jody Arrington, who's the chair of the Budget Committee. He has actually written into his budget proposal a commission and so that authorizes it. So there's a lot of momentum for that, but we had a very productive meeting, about an hour and 15-minute meeting with leadership and a few other folks that are in on the details of that, trying to advance the ball. Meanwhile, there's a lot of other meetings that are happening, and at the end of the day, I believe we have a responsibility to govern and to keep government open, if at all possible. We have that same responsibility, though, to make sure that we are fiscally in tune and in line with what our income is. That is not the case. But here's the dirty little secret. We could eliminate virtually every defense project and spending bill. We could eliminate almost every single domestic project and spending bill. And what is, we still would not be in balance, and here's why. Interest on our debt is absolutely limiting what we are able to do in any other part of the government funding. So we have to tackle that. And I think the only way to do that is through some type of commission structure that is going to force us to have an up or down vote on some very difficult issues. And also there would be a requirement to make sure that a vote did happen. In other words, in this law, it would require the House to hold a vote without any amendments, a Senate to hold a vote without any amendments. It's obviously very important who gets named to that. But that is, I believe, the path forward. In the meantime, we have to keep the government open. It is just going to pull our eye off the ball, the long-term ball. And don't get me wrong. We are talking billions, and the debate is we're up over $1.5 trillion in spending for this year is what has been proposed. We're trying to bring that down, but those billions pale in comparison to what the real issue is, which is all these unfunded trust funds, or underfunded, I should say, trust funds that are out there. So obviously I'm here in Washington, sticking around. We are potentially having votes this weekend. It's unlikely. Sunday and Monday is Yom Kippur, part of the Jewish holiday, one of the high holy days for them. So we will not be having session on Sunday or Monday for sure. We'll see what's going to be happening tomorrow and potentially Saturday. I do know, in fact, I just literally was going to do this earlier, but I was just having a conversation with one of our leadership folks who was kind of filling me in on some of those details. I know the appropriations folks are moving ahead. The Appropriations Committee is working on this. Various factions within our Republican conference are continuing to have conversations, which is a good thing. We need to have that. There is progress being made. There have been some who have threatened that they will never vote for anything. They just simply want shutdown. I think that's a huge mistake. And there are some who have said they will do anything to keep government open as well. And I think that's a mistake. You know, we've got to make sure that we are hitting the target here. And I understand the frustration that they have. We all have it. We should have been doing this earlier. I wish we had been doing this earlier. There was a number of circumstances as to why that didn't happen. But here's what we can do now: move forward. And by moving forward, we need to do some sort of type of continuation of government funding. We need to put in a debt commission that looks at our spending and our obligations and the debts that we have occurred over the last number of decades. The Senate took the agreement on the debt ceiling and actually expanded the spending that they are proposing, and that's including Republicans on the Senate side. That's a huge mistake. If you're hearing anything in the news or anything around that the Republicans in the House aren't adhering to the deal, well, the Senate already has blown that. That is what we're kind of facing here. So stay tuned. Probably is not going to be huge movement over the weekend. Forward-facing publicly, a lot of movement internally is what I would expect. Because we're going to be having people, including myself, on this debt ceiling proposal and the things that we're looking at, working over the weekend and working into the beginning of next week when we come back on Tuesday after Yom Kippur, and we're going to be working this through till we get some sort of government funding that is going to keep government open while we are passing these appropriations bills, and I hope that my colleagues are going to be able to be clear-eyed on this and honest with themselves on both sides of the aisle. So, all right, everybody, have a good night. We'll talk to you soon.